I'm not going to sit here and bore you with a super long intro. If you clicked on this video, chances are you know what a draft grades video is. And if you don't, I'll run it down for you real quick. Pretty self-explanatory. Basically, we're going team by team, talking about the draft. I'm going to assign a letter grade to every single pick and then give an overall grade for the team in question. Going to be talking about all 32 teams over the summer. That's my big twist that I put on it. Not exactly reinventing the wheel, but not a lot of people give each team their own video to shine. Usually it's division by division, conference by conference, and those are totally legitimate ways of going about things and probably take a lot less work and save you a lot of time, but hey, I like to do things a little bit differently. Keep in mind, though, because of that time crunch, this intro is pre-recorded. I'm recording this all the way back in May. Who knows how long these videos will take to come out, so just keep that in mind. You know what team you're watching. You don't need me to tell you in the intro. You clicked on the video, you can read the title, you can see the thumbnail. Two quick things to keep in mind. Number one, I'm not a professional. I don't claim to be a professional. I am very much an amateur, so if I disagree with something your favorite team did, I'm not saying I know better than your favorite general manager, your favorite scout, if you're a freak and have one of those. I'm just saying I didn't agree with the pick. I didn't agree with the process. That's my opinion. Feel free to disagree and let me know in the comments below why you disagree with me or agree with the team, whichever it may be. Regardless, the point is, I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody here. I just have opinions and I like to share them. Also, I have changed my grading scale up from last year, and that is to say that I actually have a grading scale now, as you can see on the screen. This will keep things more uniform, allow me to stay more consistent, and also provide some transparency between me and you as the viewer. So, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into whatever team we're talking about today. If you're watching this video, chances are you're likely a Denver Broncos fan, so I don't need to sit here and tell you how amazing their offseason has been. You know, adding guys like Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga and even J.K. Dobbins is obviously very good for this football team. Three very talented players. Sure, they come with injury asterisks or whatever, but when they're on the field, when they're healthy, they are tremendous. They also re-signed Michael Burton, which I have to shout out anytime a fullback is relevant. I do need to bring it up, and the Broncos use Burton a decent bit. He's a very, very quality blocker, very good player. And then you get into this draft, and they added some very talented pieces again, including one piece that I feel was like the final infinity stone for the gauntlet that they've been building on defense with Jahdae Barron, the defensive back out of Texas. Just going ahead and jumping into this class, Barron is one of these super versatile players who you can use like a chess piece, like a Swiss Army knife, right? Where he can play in the nickel, which is where I think he's best, or you can play him as a box safety, he can play deep safety, he could even play on the boundary as an outside corner. And he's going to at least hold his own in all of those situations, if not excel. And having a guy like that truly transcends your defense and makes it so much harder to game plan for because you don't know what he's going to be doing on a given play. You can move him around to get more advantageous matchups. If you're going up against a team with like a dominant tight end, you can throw a guy like this on him and make sure that tight end doesn't get any separation. Or if they have like a dominant slot receiver, or if you know the other team's going to be running the ball a lot, you can have him lock in on the running back and in the run game. Or, you know, if you know the other quarterback's not good at handling blitzes, this is someone you can consistently send at the quarterback and get pressure. Like, Barron can just do a little bit of everything for you. When you look at some of the best defenses in the league, they all have a guy that can at least play this role. Obviously, the best examples in the league are Kyle Hamilton of the Baltimore Ravens, Brian Branch of the Detroit Lions. Those two guys are legitimate game changers from their position, and their position is positionless. They are football players. They are defensive backs. And Jahdae Barron, I feel, can do a lot of the same things. Granted, I don't think Barron is as great of a prospect as those two, I will say that. But it's not like far off. You know, this isn't like saying he's a great value version of either of them. I just, you know, for one reason or another, think they're a little bit better. But Barron still has the potential to be an absolute superstar. I had a late first to an early second round grade on him. You get him here at 20, so the value lines up, essentially. 5'11", 194 pounds, ran a 4.39 at the combine, so he's athletic, and he's got a pretty solid frame. You know, for a nickel corner at the NFL level, it's pretty prototypical. He's a great athlete, as I mentioned. He's a very high IQ player who can read the entire field and trigger downhill in the blink of an eye. He's physical both throughout the route and coverage and in the run game. He has really good ball skills with pretty notable production in college. He has a natural feel in zone when he's playing underneath. He flies downhill and lays the wood against the run with really good discipline and fantastic diagnostics. He can work around blockers to get to the quarterback as a blitzer. And as I've already mentioned, he has experience as a nickel corner, a safety, and as a boundary corner with a skill set that could fit any of those three roles. However, I do think he's going to fit best as a nickel or as a safety. And the reason for that primarily has to do with some of his tools. He is not the most fluid player in the world, so he's going to struggle to flip his hips in coverage. Obviously, not as big of a deal when you're playing out of the nickel or at safety, but when you're on the outside, that's key, right? That is super, super important. Also because of his smaller frame, going up against more physical receivers on the outside. Say you're going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, and you ask him to guard A.J. Brown, he's going to have some problems. Now, granted, that's a very specific matchup. In division, look at a guy like Trey Harris, who just got drafted by the Chargers. That would create some problems size-wise. Additionally, when he's going up against some of these like super speedster receivers, so again, in this division, think a guy like Xavier Worthy, he's going to struggle to carry routes downfield. He's just not as fast as some of those guys, right? Like, he ran well and he looks fast on tape, but his long speed and his ability to keep up that speed downfield is definitely a little bit short of elite. Also, playing at Texas, they didn't run a ton of man coverage. I don't think that's going to be a huge deal, but certainly worth noting. And also, he's a good tackler in terms of form and diagnostics and angles and whatnot. But there are some moments sprinkled throughout tape where he comes in a little hot, and you'd like to see that cleaned up. Don't have any doubt that that can be fixed with some coaching. So in other words, you've got this guy coming in who was a very, very complete Swiss Army knife. Getting that in the first round is awesome. It looks like he's probably going to get that starting nickel job. I definitely think he should be the starter at nickel. I know there's some Broncos fans out there that want him starting on the boundary because of Riley Moss, and more specifically the game Riley Moss played against Cincinnati. But I do think Barron is at his best in the nickel, and you should play your first round pick where you're going to get the best play out of him, at least in my opinion. So either way, even if he is playing on the outside, I think this is a more than fine pick. I just definitely think he would be suited better out of the nickel. Moving then into the second round, they trade down a few spots and take RJ Harvey, the running back out of UCF. And right off the bat, I'm just going to say I didn't think the value here was very good. I thought this was a pretty solid reach. I had a 4th round grade on Harvey. Taking him here at the end of the second round is early for me. I also thought there were a lot of running backs on the board that were not only better, but do what you want out of Harvey better, and that's being this kind of like undersized scat back. I don't want to just say Darren Sproles, but obviously that name does come to mind given that he's going to work with Sean Payton. A guy like Brashard Smith would have been a much better option for that. He's a much better pass catcher out of the backfield. A guy like Bashal Tootin. There were a couple guys, Kyle Monungai, who ended up falling a while. Cam Scattaboo would have been really fun for this offense. Granted, that one I more understand because you have Audric Estime, and those are pretty similar skill sets. So maybe not so much Scattaboo. He was just the best back on the board, in my opinion, so I threw his name out there. But either way, outside of the fact that there were, in my opinion, better backs on the board and the idea that this was early, I do like the fit, and I do get what the Broncos see in Harvey, right? He is an undersized back, 5'8", 205 pounds, but he runs really hard. He's got good speed, ran a 4.4. He's got good acceleration to quickly get to top speed and explode through gaps. He has a pretty mean stiff arm at his disposal. His lateral agility and short area quickness are great and allow him to make defenders miss in the backfield as well as switch lanes. He's got really good contact balance to bounce off tacklers and stay upright. His vision and patience in the backfield are definitely adequate. He's able to let blocks develop and identify lanes in the run game. He has really good footwork to cut on a dime and make defenders miss in open space. And on third down, he has the traits and natural hands to serve as a pretty consistent option as a pass catcher. However, on the flip side of things, this is an older running back, about 24, 25 years old. He has a small frame that could cause issues and bring durability into question for the next level. Behind the line, he's pretty indecisive, spending too much time dancing instead of pressing the line or attacking the hole. When it comes to pushing the pile in traffic, he just doesn't have the mass to do that consistently. Ball security was a legitimate issue in college, and he's not a pass blocker like at all, primarily because of that size. So in other words, Harvey is a consistent downhill runner with some receiving chops, but he's very undersized and doesn't like excel at any one thing. I get why Denver likes him because he's a good complement to J.K. Dobbins, but if you wanted a complement to J.K. Dobbins, there were better options on the board, and even then, I don't know if you needed to take R.J. Harvey in the second round. It's just early for me. It's not a player I would have taken this high. I get the appeal. I think Harvey will be good for Denver, but in terms of grading the pick right away, just going off of the way I've graded every other pick, looking at value, looking at scheme fit, looking at who was on the board relative to this player, he averages out to about a C. This is a fine pick. I don't think it's a bad pick, but it's certainly not one that I'm pounding the table for. It's not one that I'm getting super excited about. I would love to be wrong because there definitely is some Bucky Irving to RJ Harvey's game, and I'm a massive Bucky Irving fan. If he can come out and have a rookie season like Bucky, then I will happily eat my words, but I just don't know if that's going to be the case. He strikes me a lot more as just a solid RB2, and that's not a player I feel is worth taking in the second round. Moving then into the third round, the Broncos made a pair of picks that I was certainly a big fan of, starting out with Pat Bryant, the wide receiver out of Illinois. One of my guys in this year's draft, 6'2", 204-pound, 22-year-old senior. A player that I really liked. Now, I understand Pat Bryant isn't a prospect that's for everybody, as he's a wide receiver that ran a 4.6 and isn't exactly a speedster by any means, but he is a super physical receiver who loves doing the dirty work for an offense. And given what they have in Marvin Mims and Cortland Sutton and Devon Vele, guys that are all capable of making big plays, getting a guy like Pat Bryant who can just be consistent, be reliable, I think is a fantastic move. Profiles very well as the wide receiver 3 for this team. I know he's not listed there yet, but I do think he can beat out Devon Vele for that wide receiver 3 spot. But getting into my notes on Bryant, he has a very solid frame for an NFL receiver, but he plays bigger than that frame. Not to say that 6 foot 202 is small, it's just he plays like he's 6'4", 215, 220, which is obviously very fun. He has fantastic play strength, and I would argue it might be the best in this class at this position, but that strength is going to allow him to box out DBs and make plays after the catch. He can create separation in close quarters with hand usage and his larger frame. His hands are like glue with only one drop during his senior year. He fights very hard in contested catch situations. His catch radius is quite large. He can pluck balls out of the air away from his frame. He's able to contort his body to make tough catches. He tracks the ball in the air very well downfield. After the catch, he runs like a power back with great contact balance and a very tough stiff arm. He absolutely erases DBs as a blocker in the run game. And then at Illinois, he was praised pretty consistently for his character, leadership, and rapid development as a wide receiver. On the flip side of things, though, I already said, not a fast guy. In fact, I would say he's not very explosive at all. He doesn't really have the acceleration or top-end speed to pull away from DBs on crossing routes, vertical routes, things of that nature. Just overall, athletically, he leaves a bit to be desired. And his route tree right now is going to need some development. I would say it is subpar at best, and if he's going to be anything other than a red zone threat, a 50-50 guy, or like a gadget guy where you get him the ball quickly and let him run his ass off after the catch, if you want him to be a fully complete receiver, you're going to have to get him in the lab right away to work on routes. That being said, given his development at Illinois and how quickly he was able to grow from year to year, I have a lot of faith in him being able to do that at the NFL level with this coaching staff. But yeah, I love Pat Bryant. I'm super excited to see him in Denver. It just occurred to me when I was talking about the receivers on this team that Troy Franklin also exists, so shout out to him. But Pat Bryant is definitely my favorite out of the receivers the Broncos have drafted the last 2 years. So I'm very excited to see how he's going to pair with Bo Nix. Real quick, before we move on to their next pick, there's one more thing I had written in my notes that I totally forgot about when I was recording this, so here in post, I'm adding it in. I was really, really looking for Pat Bryant to go to a team with a accurate quarterback, like one of these guys that can just hit somebody in a tight window, no problem, because of his inability to create separation consistently. Like, yeah, he can create a little bit with physicality, but considering he can't pull away from guys, when he gets on these 50-50 balls, you want to be able to put that ball on his back shoulder or, put it where only he can get it. I have a lot of confidence in Bo Nix being the type of quarterback that can do that for Pat Bryant. So this landing spot, I like it even more now that I reread that in my notes. Makes a ton of sense. I'm disappointed in myself for not bringing it up when I was initially recording, but adding it in here now so it doesn't go overlooked. But yeah, love the Pat Bryant pick, and we'll move on to the next one. 27 picks later, they ended up taking Sai'vion Jones, the defensive lineman out of LSU. And I really like this pick. Sai'vion Jones was someone I thought was a very fun evaluation. 21 years old, 6'5", 280 pounds, 33.5-inch arms. He is going to come in right away as the backup and probably the eventual successor to John Franklin Myers as one of these like tweener big boy defensive linemen who can play inside and outside. So jumping right into my notes here with Sai'vion Jones, his athletic tools relative to his size are definitely notable. I'm not going to confuse him with some of these faster edge rushers in the class, but for a 280-pounder, that boy can move. His fantastic play strength. He's a very high motor player who never takes a day off. His really good burst and his first step off the line for a player his size is certainly notable. His hands are strong and active in both phases of the game. He has a very solid arsenal of moves with an inside swim move, a dip rip combo, and a chop rip combo. He uses length and strong hands to collapse pockets with his bull rush. He sets a very strong edge in the run game, and also in the run game, his eyes and diagnostics are tremendous. He is a very, very smart run defender. However, being 280 pounds, he's not really a bendy player at all. He needs to utilize his ability to convert speed into power for a bull rush more often. His pad level needs to come down a little bit. His tackling technique is a mess. That is certainly something that needs cleaned up, but that's very teachable. And also, with his pass rushing tools, even though I did say there's a couple moves in there, he doesn't really have a counter that he goes to. He tends to stall out. So those are definitely things that will require development, but going to Denver, getting to work with this defensive staff, getting to work with some of the guys on the defensive line, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, etc., he's got some really nice teachers. So I have no doubt that he'll be able to develop as a backup 4i for this team. Definitely someone that can see the field right away as a rotational player. And then, as I said, with John Franklin Myers, I would assume the end goal is for him to eventually be able to take over opposite Zach Allen. Love that pick for Denver. Definitely a player I'm a fan of, and I'm excited to see how he will pan out for this team. And then on day 3, there are 2 players I can talk about, and only one I really have a lot of thoughts on, and that is Q Robinson, the edge rusher out of Alabama. And Q Robinson is an interesting evaluation because he did not play on defense much at all during his career at Alabama. He was primarily a special teamer, and then he became a situational pass rusher for them. And when he was on the field, he definitely showed some traits that you get excited about. He has a nice first step. He's quick off the ball. He's fast. His acceleration's good. And he's a very, very high motor player. The problem is these are things you want to be saying about a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old, not a 23-year-old. Once you're at 23, you're kind of expecting a little bit of development, right? You're expecting skills as opposed to just traits. And Robinson isn't exactly there. Like against the run, he's a total non-factor. His diagnostics are bad. His gap discipline isn't very good. And he can't stack and shed consistently. He's not somebody who has like a deep arsenal of moves. His pass rush plan is totally inconsistent and is going to need developed. Like he's going to need to figure out what he's doing once the ball is snapped. It's just, he's such a work in progress as a player that taking him here in the 4th round just feels early to me, right? Like I had a 5th to a 6th round grade on him. You get him here at the end of the 4th round, which is why this is a B as opposed to being in the C range like RJ Harvey. But it's still early. There were still edge rushers on the board who I thought were better, more complete players who also had really nice athletic tools. But that being said, I can't get mad at this pick because you're not drafting him to be a starter. You're drafting him to be a rotational pass rusher. You're looking at Q Robinson and saying this guy has the energy has the athleticism that we want in our edge room. He's going to play special teams for us most likely as well. We just want those traits in this guy in the room. We'll figure out the development stuff later, and that's fine. Again, if he was younger, I would be much higher on this pick. But once you hit 23, if we're still talking about you as a traitsy developmental guy, you know, it's getting close. So, not a bad pick by any means, but certainly not one that I'm a big fan of. But with that said, there are other 2 picks here on day 3. I don't evaluate punters and kickers, so I can't say anything about Jeremy Crawshaw other than that's an incredible name. That is such a sick name. I hope he is a punter in the league for 15 to 20 years, just so we can be talking about the legend of Jeremy Crawshaw. So cool. Again, 6th round, not bad for a punter. You know, you're looking for guys at this point that are going to make the roster. If Crawshaw is good, then he can make the roster. If he's not a big deal. You tried. Let me know down in the comments below if I'm missing something there. If you're a big punter fan, which if you are, shout out to you. You know, in the same way with fullbacks, I just don't know punters. If you know anything about this kid, then please let me know. I would love to be enlightened. And then finally, their 7th round pick, Caleb Lohner, the tight end out of Utah. Typically speaking, this would result in an NA grade from me, because I have never watched Caleb Lohner play a snap of football. In fact, the highlights that you're watching on your screen right now is the first time I am actively looking at Caleb Lohner playing football. That being said, the reason this is an A and not an NA grade is because there's really not a lot to look at outside of the projection for Lohner. Because this is not a player that really had much of a college career. He had a career stat line of 4 receptions for 54 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is baller, by the way. Every time he touches the football, it's a touchdown, so naturally he's going to be a superstar. But the reason you make this pick is because he's 6'8", 234 pounds, and played basketball. This is a former basketball player who made the transition to tight end, got drafted in the 7th round. You're taking a shot in the dark, you know, a full developmental dart throw on this kid, and I can't say a single bad thing about that. What kind of Grinch would I be if I sat here and said, well, this is fun, however, there were 3 UDFA tight ends that they could have taken? No, this is fun, this is great, makes a ton of sense. Sean Payton drafted Jimmy Graham, you know, had experience with one of these guys. Granted, Jimmy Graham is a lot better of a prospect than I assume Lohner is, but we'll have to see how that plays out. We'll have to see how it pans out. I hope it works. I hope Crawshaw and Lohner both are like superstars for Denver. That would be so fun, but we'll have to wait and see. Either way, I'm never going to get mad at a developmental dart throw in the 7th round on a 6'8" tight end, because fuck yeah. That's football, man. That's peak football. But as a whole, I do really like this Broncos class. Even the 2 guys that I didn't grade quite as high as their peers, I still see redeeming qualities in, and I see exactly why Denver liked them, so I can't complain. I'm going to give this a B+. Very, very solid draft class to cap off a wonderful offseason. Barron, Bryant, Jones, and Lohner are guys I'm super excited to see play in the league from day one. Harvey and Robinson are 2 guys that, you know, I'm not as high on, but I definitely see the appeal of, as I said. And then Jeremy Crawshaw, hell yeah, man. Fun punter name. Shout out to him. I hope he makes the team and he ends up starting. That's going to do it for this video. It's a little bit of a shorter one, but I just didn't have as much to say about Denver's draft class as I did with other teams. If you have any thoughts, definitely let me know down in the comments below what you thought. Was I too high, too low on anybody? Are there any UDFAs I maybe didn't watch or mention that you think are worth talking about? I'd love to know so I can keep an eye on them during the preseason. And more specifically, if you know anything about Jeremy Crawshaw, please fill me in. I want to know. I want to be all in on this punter. I want to push irresponsible agendas about Jeremy Crawshaw. I've just never watched him play a down of football, and I don't know how to fully evaluate a punter, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. All that being said, though, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like down below, as it does help out the channel a ton. It shows your support, it shows you care, and I really do appreciate it. And also make sure to subscribe for more NFL content throughout the offseason and into the regular season and beyond. Who knows, maybe we'll have a Broncos video out during the regular season. Hasn't really done any film breakdowns on them over the last couple years. Maybe this is the year that changes, who knows? You'll have to subscribe to find out. And above all else, I already said it, but I'll say it again because it is the most important thing in this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it because you're all wonderful people and you truly do deserve it.
Had a chance on the throwback. This was an ill-advised throw. What an unbelievable catch by Cole Kmet. And he cups it too. No movement when he hits the ground, tucked up against his shoulder. Wow.
Using that